Hey everybody, today Rahdo runs through Sorcery, episode number 6. And yay, just in time for my 6th episode, I've got a logo. Thank you very much, Johan, for putting me in some purple robes with a very sharp hat. My wife's favorite color is purple. As I delve into a green crystal ball, my favorite color is green. And I am trying to find for you folks all of the hidden gems that will be ending their crowdsource campaigns in the first 2 weeks of September. I have just spent, it's not as easy as just looking at a crystal ball. Let me tell you, folks. I've just spent, 2 or 3 hours digging through dozens and dozens of Kickstarter campaigns, reading rule books, watching how to play videos to find the ones that really jump out to me. And who am I? I'm somebody that likes playing games with my wife. So I'm not really interested in party games. I'm not really interested in solo-only games. And I'm also not interested in games with a lot of players beating each other up. So if you're like me, you're looking for lovely, Care Bear-friendly games to play with at least 2, and you've got some cash to spend in the next 2 weeks, well, I've got you covered. I'm going to tell you about the ones that really are a cut above the rest. So, without any further ado, folks, let's get started with the first game on the list today, the Eva Engine. And now, this is ending its run on September 1st, so there's not much time to check this out. What is it? Well, officially, it's a solo survival card game, and it's one of those ones where you just pay a couple of euros, and that gives you digital files that you can print out and then play the game. And unlike most of the ones I've covered so far, which are roll and writes, this is actually a survival card game. What you print out is 9 cards with absolutely stunning art. Although I understand there will be a black and white printout option as well if you want to save your ink. And those 9 cards are everything you need, plus a couple of dice and tokens to keep track. Because what's happened is you have crashed on a planet and you're about to die. And every time you play, you draw 4 cards of this very, very tiny deck. And the way they are laid out on the table becomes a puzzle for you to solve. There's no video for this, but let me scroll down to show a little bit more. Oh my gosh, you have this optional player mat that you could print out to let you keep track of where everything goes. But the game is stunning looking, but from reading about it, it sounds like the puzzly nature is what really draws me in, because all the cards that represent the different elements of this ship interact with each other in different ways depending on where they are relative to each other. So a big part of this game is trying to move the right pieces into the right place to activate them at the right time to trigger benefits of the ones they are adjacent to, so that you can actually save yourself before time runs out. And I love the idea of a fiendishly challenging and tension-filled puzzle that you get from just 9 cards. And while officially it's a solo game, I also very much appreciate that they have done the work to come up with a 2-player version, which is cooperative. Let's see, they talk about it somewhere in here, where players have imperfect communication. You see the initial layout, and then players can talk up front. Well, I think this is how we're going to have to try and fix this. But then, for the majority of the game, they can't talk as they just take turns. And hopefully, I make a move and you understand why I made that move. Although occasionally, we can spend resources to allow ourselves to talk again and reset. So that just speaks to me how deep the puzzly nature of this must be. And again, as a former designer myself, video games for 20 years, I love the idea of doing less with more. So a rich puzzly game for 1 or 2 players with only 9 cards that only costs a couple of euros, and then you print it out yourself? Yes, please. This sounds lovely, which is why the Eva Engine caught my eye, and it ends on September 1st. Then the next one I'd want to talk about is Tiny Robot Love Doctors, which I love the title, of course, and I love the presentation, a really cute cartoony aesthetic to it, but mostly what I'm really interested in is the gameplay. Let me see if I can skip to where the gameplay is. This is a Bejeweled Tetris-style game where players are working cooperatively to solve the problems of our patients, our robot patients, that is. And what we do is, on our turn, we can manipulate all the chips that represent the programming of this robot that we're trying to cure. Moving them around, flipping them, all to try to fulfill a little Tetris shape that we have in front of each of us. And if I can't do a good thing on my turn that helps me, then I'll do something that helps you on your turn. Because I've played a lot of these type of manipulating things, Bejeweled style, moving stuff around games in the past, but normally everybody's working on their own board. Here, we are working cooperatively on a common board because we are all doctors working on the same robot. And I think this sounds really, really cool. I love the presentation. I love the story it tells of players working together to help somebody else. And I love Bejeweled style Tetris Polyomino stuff. And plus, I love the story. The developers get on camera and talk a little bit about how the game came about and who they are. So I like everything about this game. And it is going to be ending its run on September 2nd, folks. Tiny Robot Love Doctors. Check it out. If you're anything like me, I think you might be very intrigued. But now, let's move on to the next one, Barbaric, which ends its run on September 6th. And I'll be honest, at first, this one did not appeal to me at all because on the surface, this is a big, lots of plastic miniatures running around on a map, players trying to attack and fight with each other and level up and all kinds of things. And that's just not what I'm about. There's a big central boss on the middle of the board that looks stunning, just like all the player miniatures do. And I suspect there's a lot of really interesting, intricate combat-based card play. But again, I couldn't care less about Barbaric until they unlocked the solo and the co-op mode. And now I am very interested, folks, because the core of this game is you don't play as just a character, you play a pilot, and every time you play, you have a pilot who has their deck of cards, and you fly a different ship that has a different deck of cards. So kind of like Smash Up, you mix all these cards together and create a new combination of abilities and cards that is going to play out differently every time. So that, combined with co-op play, gets me very, very interested all of a sudden in Barbaric, which just looks absolutely stunning. And I am definitely wanting to know more about this one, which closes on September 6th. All right, folks. Now, let's move on from such a big and epic game to a smaller one with, not quite so ambitious, but still very, very cool. It is Camouflage. Now, this ends its run on September 8th, and this is a 5-minute brain-stimulating pattern-matching puzzle game for 1 to 7 players, which they also tout is 100% colorblind friendly, which is certainly nice. Now, at its heart, this is a real-time game, hence the 5 minutes, which means it's not for everybody, but Jen and I have definitely enjoyed real-time games in the past. And in this game, at the start, you have a hand of 3 cards with more cards to draw, I believe. And what we're doing is racing as fast as we can to get all our cards played to the table. And if you get your cards done first for everybody else, you win. Here's the thing. Every card is a 3x3 grid of different camouflage patterns. And what you have to do to be able to play it onto the board is you have to look for 3 squares that are adjacent to each other in this big, ever-growing mishmash of cards that everybody's playing to, and if you can find one that matches the side of one of your cards, you can play that. And that's what you're trying to do. Get these cards played as fast as you can. And, of course, players are constantly adding new cards because we're all racing as fast as we can, which is maybe creating opportunities for you or taking those opportunities away. But I really like the idea of this. This seems like such a simple, pure, elegant idea for a quick 5-minute game. It's not a very expensive game. And also, I really like the fact that they're two-sided, so the other side has symbols instead of camo for colorblind players. So the core puzzle, I suspect, Jen and I will enjoy quite a bit. But then on top of that, they have a solo mode where you have these like almost kind of Sudoku style puzzles where you say, okay, take these particular cards and arrange them to fit this particular pattern if you can figure out a way to do it. That sounds very neat to me as well. So I like everything about this game. I like the presentation. I like a fun little, hey, between games, just a quick 5-minute boom, boom, boom. But I suspect it's one of those games that after you play, hey, let's shuffle up, deal some more, and try again. Because, Camouflage looks like a very sharp game, and it ends its run on September 8th. Alrighty, now let's move on to the next one on the list. The Red Dragon Inn Chaos at Copperport. Alrighty, now this is actually a game that I covered many years ago. I did a run through for Red Dragon Inn Battle at Greyport. And if you just do a Google search or a YouTube search for Rahdo Greyport, you will find it. And I have to admit, when Jen and I played this cooperative deck building combat game all those years ago, we were both really impressed. I think it is a brilliant co-op deck builder. It just missed making my top 10 fantasy card cooperative games of all time. Because it has so much flexibility and so much freedom and so many interesting decisions about, hey, it's not my turn, but I can spend my cards to help you deal with what's in front of you, but then that means I have fewer cards to protect myself on my turn. The core gameplay has always been very sharp, and this new expansion adds new heroes, new types of monsters, and new types of items that you can earn, where if you beat monsters, you would then unlock items as you race towards the end to try to work together to beat all the beasties that are overrunning the poor fantasy town of Greyport. My only complaint with the game had always been that I wasn't a big fan of the fact that there is a lot of dice rolling, although it does it in a cool way that is better than most roll-to-resolve games. So if you're somebody who loves roll-to-resolve, loves the drama of, okay, I've got everything now, roll, and if you like cooperative fantasy deck building, you have to check this out because it's really one of the best. If you're not a big fan of roll-and-resolve, that might give you pause, but again, Jen and I were so impressed, we enjoyed it in spite of our distaste of roll-to-resolve. Now, I think most people love rolling dice and getting the big hits or the surprise super hits out of nowhere. So, again, great co-op, great deck building, great fantasy with a little luck of the die. You might want to check out Chaos in Copperforge, which ends its run, when is it? On September 8th. Okay, now we have one more to talk about, which ends its run on September 9th. This one is called River Trek, and I am not even going to bother trying to play the video because it is useless. I have to admit, everything about this Kickstarter page made it very difficult for me to see why did it fund so fast? What is it that people are interested besides the low price? And it wasn't until I started watching this how to play from the designer, where skip to about 2 minutes and 30 seconds in, I believe is where it was, because he spends forever on the setup. He's like, I don't care about the setup. Your setup doesn't sell me the game, Chris. Your gameplay does. So I'm glad I watched it, though, because seeing it in action, this game is basically a one-directional Mancala game. And that's very cool. Mancala games like Trajan or Five Tribes, are very popular these days. And in this game, we all have a bunch of our chips on various spaces on this river. And on your turn, you're going to pick one of the piles of chips that probably has at least one of your boats, but maybe some of your opponents as well. You pick them up, and like a Mancala, you start dropping them off into the subsequent spaces further downriver. And every place that one of these chips lands, it activates that space. Whether it's a market where you can get the resources you're trying to do set collection, or whether it's a cross-current space, which will make that piece then slide back upriver. So now it has to start working its way down again. It sounds really freaking cool. And as soon as I saw the designer, Chris, do his first step of talking about how he dropped off these different pieces, like, oh, I want to try this game. That sounds so cool. I was a little nervous, though, because, a game like this is really going to do better with more players. If it's just me and you, and there's and it's only my pieces and your pieces, that's not going to be as cool. But I read the rulebook, and it has a very nicely implemented two-player variant where there is a third character who does nothing other than, in between players' turns, the third character will always grab the furthest back tile and just lay them out in order. That's all they do. So it just creates a little bit of extra that gives you enough to think about that, hey, when I'm planning on my turn, I know what the automated player is going to do, so I need to put myself in a situation where I take advantage of what I want to do and not give you great opportunities by dropping your pieces off in certain spots. And I also know what's about to happen after I'm done, before you take your turn. So, all combined, I gotta say, folks, I am really intrigued by this unassuming little game, River Trek, the board game. A Mancala that is all one direction downstream, but with all these really cool little twists of things that move back up. Sounds very, very cool to me. I would definitely check it out. And it's gonna be ending its run on September 9th. And that's it, folks. We have finished our crowd sorcery, and let me know if any of those are interesting to you. Let me know if I missed anything. Believe me, I spent hours this morning pouring over stuff. And if you're like, well, hey, what about this one? I'll let you know. That's what the comments are down there for. But otherwise, folks, thanks very much for watching. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time to tell you about all the games that are ending at the end of the month of September. So have a very, very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.